Welcome to Behind the Zine, issue 4. We're going to Mineral Wells, Texas with Greg Lawson. Greg, are you there?
Hey, buddy. How we doing?
Hey, thanks for being here with me. You looking good.
Oh, thanks, man. You look really
Thank you so much. I should probably move this thing, right? I mean,
good. I'm okay, but yeah, I might get a cramp in my hammy.
okay. All right, we'll get rid of it. Okay. Ah, that's better. Oh, there you are. I can't see much with these on.
Man, these are polarized. I can't see anything with these on. What are you
They're
doing?
not meant for indoors, I've learned.
Ah,
But they look so good. Thanks for doing issue 4. I loved it.
well, well, thanks, man.
Um,
I love the layout.
oh
So,
shucks. Well, thanks. But
uh,
we made magic, and I dig this. So I've known you for a number of years. The first time I met you was in Austin, Texas, at a paranormal event. I said this in the editorial, but you were in police uniform, and I thought just a hired cop to be there for the event or whatever. But turns out, no, you really love this stuff. How'd that
yeah.
happen? How did tell me take me back to the young childhood of Greg where you fell in love with all things weird.
Well, I had an older brother, and he tortured me. So
Ah.
there's that. When I was 5, he was 12 years older than me. His name was Bill. And
Oh,
he
I don't
had
mean to stop you. Does that mean you were a mistake?
Yes, I
Yeah.
was that rhythm method of the Catholic family. Yeah, I
Got
was
it.
9 years
Okay.
behind everybody.
Established from right from the get-go you were a mistake. Go on.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I've stuck with that my whole life.
Right.
Um, so he was 12 years older than I, and he had a 1968, 67 Triumph Bonneville motorcycle. And he would take his 5-year-old little brother, me, and put me on the gas tank of the motorcycle, and we'd go riding around with no helmets, just in the back roads of Texas. And we were doing urban exploration, but we didn't know that's what it was. He didn't know. He just thought it was cool to go in abandoned buildings and go take a look at cemeteries and graveyards and things like that. And he would take me there, and he would try to find the old, the an old grave that had a child buried there, and he would he would go and introduce me to the child and tell me, look, he's 4 years old, he's only a year younger than you, and he's in the ground rotting. He would do stuff like that with me. Yeah. So he did what a big brother's supposed to do,
Right.
and of course I passed that down when I went to elementary school, junior high, high school. I was a kid that had the long hair and riding the motorcycle and hanging out in graveyards and where you're not supposed to be typically. And yeah, so it just kind of started there, and I got a real interest in just legends and just the weirdness.
Yeah. Now you've got a military background too. Military first, right? Before law enforcement.
Yeah,
That's
right
how
out of high
that's
school,
supposed to go.
the economy crashed in 81, 82. And so the economy crashed. There was no jobs if you didn't have a skill set. And I had no skill set out of high school. So when I got laid off I was working for an interconnect telephone company right out of high school and got laid off. And one thing led to another. Next thing I know, I was on a bus heading to Georgia, and was I did 4 years infantry in the army. I was with the 82nd Airborne Division, and then up in Alaska. And being with the 82nd, I only spent 7 months at Fort Bragg. The rest of the time I was deployed. I was either in North Africa, the Middle East, or Central America. It was a Ronald Reagan Central American tour.
Oh, right. That
So
was a busy time for Central America.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing about me is there was this thing. There were a lot of people get confused about this, but there were these things called libraries. And if you wanted to know stuff, there were these things called books.
Heard of them.
And yeah, and you would go in the library, and you would look at books and you would find out stuff. So I was not a big reader, but I realized if I'm going to go to Honduras and I want to find out what's going on in Honduras and what's the cool stuff, you got to go look at this thing called an encyclopedia. And you would look up and see what's going on. And then, of course, they didn't have the weirdness in the encyclopedia typically. So you'd have to dig a little bit deeper and find out, you know, what are the legends in Honduras? What are the legends in the Sinai Desert?
Yeah.
So I would do a little bit of research. And whenever I had time off, I would then get away from all the other GIs and get out in the indigenous population and go try to find out whatever the weird stuff was. So, I didn't realize it was a thing. I thought it was just something I like to do. And one thing led to another, and one day I'm looking at the TV and there's people with TV shows about ghost hunting and all this stuff. Well, I've been doing this for 40 years. What is this all about?
Well, but
Oh yeah.
so okay, one of the things I loved about your zine and your work in general, right, is that you take a very methodical approach to this stuff, but um, which, by the way, can ruin a legend like nothing. But you don't. You don't. You still have the wide-eyed little boy, like wow, right in you, which is so important because we don't
Yeah.
really know. Yes, it's super interesting to trace, like, well, why are we talking about this building being haunted, that one not, or this monster here, or that story there? Like, how did that happen? But you go back far enough, and sometimes you go, whoa, something weird happened. And we did our best to explain it, but you're still very methodical, and it comes across in your story about like even the way you investigate the haunted Hill House, right? You go through it, room by room, step by step, establishing, and I mean, I can see the police work in just your description of what you're doing. I'm curious, and I know you just retired last year, but how did your like police colleagues deal with you when they know about like the books you write on zombies and haunts and Roswell and everything else? How do they rib you about it? What was that like?
So there's typically three responses. There's one, hey, that's cool. What do you do? Yeah, I watch this TV show, and they like it, and they can typically separate it from law enforcement.
Sure.
So while certain skills and best practices should be established in any kind of investigation, there still is a line in the sand, right? Of what I would present to a grand jury or what I would present in a lecture.
Hmm.
It's two different things.
Sure.
And you present any of this stuff to a grand jury, and I'm going to be seeing the psychologist. My multiphasic personality inventory score is going to drop drastically.
Right.
Yeah, I got some issues as far as credibility when I go into court. So I have to very, very much separate that. So I have the people that really enjoy it and understand the separation. Um, I have the people that completely roll their eyes, the cynics, and they're just like it's embarrassing kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing about those people, and there's plenty of those cops like this, is those are typically the cops that are omnipotent. They can
Mhm.
walk into a scene and immediately go, "Oh, this guy's guilty." And what they do in their mind, they will argue this, but what they do in their mind is they run their investigation to prove what their thought process is, not run the investigation to follow the evidence.
Right.
They will step in and they will, I don't say fabricate, but they will call out the stuff that doesn't help their whatever they've postulated.
Yeah.
They will cull it all out, and those are very dangerous cops. A lot of people go to jail. I've seen it. I have put people in jail before that did not commit the crime, but because of our process, the way that it worked, he ends up in jail. Immediately, I realize, oh, that this guy didn't do this. What are we talking about? And it takes me 3 weeks to get him out of jail.
Right.
It's a bad, very, very bad process. And I know some homicide detectives like that, and it's terrifying when you're thinking about what kind of power they have.
Yeah.
And then you have the other ones that allow the what if. They allow a broader spectrum of possibilities. And, we can say all kinds of things about something. Let's say I had a coworker at one time that I worked at Pizza Hut with. Um, she came up to me one day and grabs a hold of my hands and is looking at me, looks terrified, and does the poltergeist thing. They're here, just really, dude. It was so creepy, and it's uncomfortable for me even to talk to you about it. It was
I'm
way
still
creepy.
hung up on Pizza Hut. That's just not my
Oh yeah.
favorite pizza. But go
Well,
on.
we're
Sorry.
we're right in the middle
Yeah.
of the prep table, and people can see us. And she's standing there, and she does this, and then locks up catatonic, completely locked up like a piece of stone, and urinates all over herself.
So
Yeah.
she ain't kidding. Like that's not an
No,
act.
no, she's
Yeah.
stuck there, and I'm trying to get her to move. I'm trying to get her to go to the back, and this happens. I'm standing there, and there's some customers there. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like 16 or 17 years old, right?
Yeah.
Well, this seemed to last like 20 minutes, but it probably lasted about 2 minutes. And she started relaxing, and she started kind of coming out of it and making eye contact with me again. And I got her moving, took her in the back, set her down. She got a cigarette, and she's back there. And I get a mop and I kind of clean things up. And I go back and I'm, what's going on? And she says, every once in a while they come to get me. They take me on their ship, and they do horrible things to me. And I'm like, what? You were standing right there. She goes, I know, but they take me out of my body to their mothership, and then they do experiments on me. So she has this experiential memory of being taken out of her body, going to a very bright white uh, space, and aliens there poking and prodding her, doing all kinds of horrible things to her.
Wow.
So I call my boss, my manager. She calls general manager. General manager says, we'll pick up the medical bill, send her to the hospital. So her sister comes and picks her up, takes her to the hospital. They do an MRI on her, and she's got a huge scar on her brain.
Hmm.
Therefore, they diagnosed her with epilepsy, and end of story. Well, did something happen to her in childhood that caused this trauma, to her injury to her brain, thus causing these illusions, these hallucinations to happen? Or is she being abducted out of her body and they're performing these acts on her, and that has caused the scar on her brain?
Which is her,
Is
which is her reality though, right? Like I mean, if she's
right.
urinating herself, her you could say there's no such thing as aliens or whatever. She's like, I can just tell you what I experienced and where I go.
That's
She
right.
did her best to interpret it, and she literally peed herself.
So
Yeah.
most of us that have grown up in this century and have any background in medical or psychology or any of that, um, and we defer to conventional wisdom, we would say, well, yeah, she's got epilepsy, and this manifests itself in these images and this pain that she experienced. And everybody kind of agrees with that. But then there's always that, do you understand how the electromagnetic spectrum works?
Yeah.
Nah, you don't, it's string theory. What's really going on here? So I try to leave this interpretation open, because I firmly believe there is a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on around us that we have not evolved to perceive.
Right.
And I think that most of us have that intuition or whatever that is suppressed because our parents tell us there's no such thing as monsters, there's no such thing as ghosts, there's no such thing as ESP. So any of that we would develop or broaden our mind to think about is suppressed to begin with.
Right, right.
I
Hey,
don't know.
one more thing I want to say about police work. So I've done programs all over. Once in a while, a cop will be there, and be like, "I'm a cop. I don't believe anything that I don't see or whatever," and I get that sort of skeptical scoff, which is fine. I mean, I'm not there to convince anybody. But then the next thing I'll always say, I'm like, "Oh yeah, none of it's real, whatever." How come when you walk up and you pull over a car and they just roll down the window and you say license and registration, you already know there's drugs in the car? How do you know that? And they didn't say anything other than hello, right? He's like, I don't know. You just know. I'm like, you just know. How do you know? I
Yeah.
mean, call it instinct, call it experience, but it is some metaphysical thing that happened in your brain where you're like, this is different than just a normal traffic stop. This person has something. And you're probably right most of the time. Sometimes you're wrong. And not only that, the other thing that happens, police officers, if you're in your house asleep at night and you hear someone walking around, you wake up and you call the cops. Someone broke in. Please come here right away. I have a break in. And the police come and there's no break in. And they see you're sober and they see you're of sound mind and body. And they know they're getting called back to the same house like year after year. Tenants come and go. And the cops just have to look at each other and go, I believe they heard someone walking around, but there's nobody in here. There's no sign of forced entry, nothing's stolen, nothing's missing. First responders are often the first responders for paranormal stuff too. Did you ever have a house like that where like you went there and they're convinced someone's in the house and you can tell they're fine. They're sober, they're just scared.
Oh
Did you
yeah. Actually, that happened really close to where my office was, and it happened to the girlfriend of a very famous rock band singer. He owns a house right behind there, and probably 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and a call drops of a suspicious person. Um, I look and I see the proximity. I'm like 2 blocks away. I'm like, I'll get up out of my desk and go to this thing. But two of my deputies were like right around the corner as well, and they assigned and went over there. They went and checked the house, talked to the girlfriend. They were, these two deputies were upset enough to put themselves out at the office and come talk to me. And we talked for
Oh,
about 30 minutes because they experienced shadow people while they were there. And some other noises that, the noises are who knows.
yeah.
But they said the combination really disturbed them. And so, that's one of those things when you have somebody that is a doctor or is a licensed professional, not like a real estate agent, not like that, but somebody that would lose their license if they said, "Yeah, I see ghosts," and they're like, "Okay, we got to send you to a
Yeah.
psychologist. We need to figure this out." What are you experiencing? What is your interpretation of what you're experiencing? Is it a mild form of some sort of schizophrenia? And it's manifesting itself very, very lightly, and you're seeing these things, and what's going on with you. So there's all kinds of stuff. And the interesting thing is I've known those cops that, um, you know, I I don't believe in any of that stuff, but they won't get out at the graveyard and go check the graveyard. They're like, I ain't getting out of there. And it's like,
Yeah.
you can't have it both ways. I you can not believe in air because you don't see it. Oh, I don't see air.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's not there. You don't see light as it's traveling through anything. You only see it where it emanates and where it reflects. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is light really light? I mean,
The analogy I've used before, which I think is wonderful, is and I heard a preacher use it, so I admit I'm stealing it. But uh, you've never seen the wind in your life. You have not. It's invisible, but you've felt it at your face. You've watched it move trees around and blow debris down the street. So you could say, well, of course it's real, but how do you know it's real? You've never seen it. You've only felt it.
right.
And it's one of those things where you're like, well, but what, but that's a thing that's an everyday thing, and like you said, you don't see light, but it's passing in front of you right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, and we live in a time where it's complicated. We have more information thrown at us than all of human history, right? Like so much all the time, and I can see how people get stubborn and they're like, I've decided on these like six sets of beliefs. That's it. That's all I got. There's no room for anything else, and I've got to just hold firm to it, which is dangerous because if no new information is allowed in, well, then what are you doing, right? You're stuck in the road. You're blocking
Right.
traffic, literally.
And
Um,
over the last, I was a cop for 32 years, but over the last 20 years, I don't want to be this guy. I don't want to be the guy that's the conspiracy theorist.
yeah,
I've seen so much manipulated. through the media, through the courts, through management, through associations, as far as professional associations. The information mismanaged so badly to be twisted for whoever's agenda is. I just sit back and go, "Wow, man, I don't know what to think a lot of times," and I've experienced that. I've been a feature on the news that they're talking about that is completely wrong. That is not at all what happened. So you think about it, you think about places like mineral wells,
Mm.
and you have chamber of commerce, you have city managers, and you have all these people, historians and business people and all this stuff. And how are they crafting the narrative of their town? And so it is a soup. It is a stew of just, bones and marrow. And you're just sitting there just going, what is happening here? And that's one of the things I really like about what I do as far as investigations is I'll take one legend, and you can look this up online, or it's written in books. It's the Ghost Wagon of Westlake, Texas.
Hmm.
I always use this, and it's almost getting boring to me, but it's a great story. And that story is six stories that has amalgamated. It's
Yeah.
a conglomerate of six separate events that have now gone into one thing. And everybody's like, well, this is the Ghost Wagon of Westlake. It's like, God forbid, I ruin your legend with really cool history. And to me, it's even more interesting, other than it eliminates the ghost. Uh, I
Right.
mean, I don't want to do that, but
Yeah.
if it's not paranormal, it's not paranormal. That's one of the things I look for, just
Yeah.
like with Haunted Hill House, is I don't always look for what's there. Oh, with the orbs, what are the orbs, or whatever it might be. Oftentimes I look for what's missing, what should be there. And
Rose. Greg, where'd you go? Come back. My goodness, he's still frozen. What an awkward face. Look at that. He's completely froze. Usually it catches up by now. Huh. I guess I'm just gonna fill some time here until Greg comes back. Or I guess we could pause this too. I'm not sure. I'm gonna pause. Hold tight. We'll get him back. And we're back. Greg, what happened?
hey, man, you wouldn't believe the lightning and thunder right now. So I don't know what's going to happen.
If you got struck by lightning during this, I just want to put it out there that I will exploit this video
It will be the best.
as much as possible. Like, just,
People always like, oh, I want to pass away when I go to sleep, and I want it to be peaceful. I'm like, I want a wood chipper or a combine or something. That's what I want.
or a lightning strike during a Zoom.
Yeah, I want it
Yeah,
like a get hay baled. That would be good.
yeah.
Like, hey, my shirt. I'll be all stuck in the hay bale. Be great.
And I'll start with like some really somber message. I just want to say Greg would have wanted this. That's
Yes,
pretty.
absolutely.
That's
The
amazing. I don't remember where we were talking about. We had to wait a while for you to reboot and everything.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Where were we at? We were at So we were talking about the way different people want to control the narrative
Yeah.
and mineral well, whether it's police, media, politicians, managers, or the town of Mineral Wells. And you and I talked about this before you even started working on this issue of the zine, where you said, that the town wants to say one thing because they want to bring in tourists. The homeowner wants to say another, and they're getting some stuff from psychics. And I was like, Greg, just tell it your way, right? I mean, that's the beautiful thing. We're not corporate owned or anything. We're just on a wing and a prayer here, man. Like this is underground. This is just us answering to the readers. So I'm always of the opinion when it comes to like art or writing or whatever, like you just tell the truth and tell the truth as you sort of uncover it. And so you did. Do you think you're going to get any? I mean, by the way, the zine is like days old. It's just starting to arrive at people that have bought it. Are you worried about any blowback from the town or from the homeowner?
No, I think Catherine and I have a good repu. I mean, a good. relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, I try to kind of balance out what's going on because when you have some solid evidence of something, well then we can go down that trail. And she has uncovered a lot of stuff, owning the house
Yeah.
that nobody else cares about, right? I mean, she owns the house. Nobody in the town cares whether or not, the welcome sign was behind her house. But
Right.
you walk up there and it's like, well, what is this foundation?
Right.
What are these things? Yeah, yeah.
It's in the zine.
So
Yeah.
what is all of that? And they ended up relocating that sign. So
Yeah.
that sign was at one spot for a long time, and then they ended up relocating it. And it's like, all right, well, did anybody do any uh, uh, magazine articles or newspaper articles on relocating the sign? We gotta look that up. Try to figure out when was that done. Because people say, "Oh, that sign's always been there." It's like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was located at a different spot. So most people don't care anything about history until they want to start arguing, and then they'll be dismissive of the history.
Yeah.
And you see that now. We're always told growing up, going through school, a lot of people hated history. They hated it because of the way they taught it.
Yep.
You know, uh, what day did this document get signed?
Who
Who
cares?
cares?
Doesn't
What does
matter.
the document say, and what did it accomplish? What's the
Yeah.
what's the end user?
Yep.
What did they get out of it? And not superfluous rote information. We need experiential information and how this applied to us.
Right. The
And so,
story part of history.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and what it means, not just
Right.
facts and circumstances. What did this mean to
Yeah.
us?
It,
And
it's
so,
it's fun. So working in TV for years now, I know when we're talking about narratives, if someone throws a date out, March 8th, 2007, this event took place where there was this murder. What's happening is the audience is going, March 8th, 2007. Okay, I guess I should remember that. And meanwhile, they're trying to, and they've missed the story.
yeah,
The date is not important, although that is
no,
my daughter Sophie's birthday. Ha!
eh,
But whatever. But you know what I mean? So like, it's one of those things where like your brain is now hung up. Like, oh, I was just given a very specific fact. I guess I got to hold on to that. Remember March 8th, March 8th, March 8th, and then they've missed the point you were saying. I get we need some context. It was 2007. That's probably enough, or it was 1895. Oh, okay, got it. Before, electricity or whatever. But you can get hung up on that. The nice thing about print is you can put in those dates because the reader can pause if they wish to, but then keep going, knowing I can always glance back if I really need to know the date or if I want to put that into like a more specific context. And that's one of the things, like, you said you weren't a reader growing up, right? But like
hmm,
that's that's one of the beauties of this medium of print is that it's there. You can go back to it. You can read it again. You can reread if you want to really let it soak in. And I think that's one of the things that's missing as we get sort of hung up on reels and TikToks and 30-second attention spans. We have a little more room here, and so that's, I don't know. And I think you handled it beautifully. You covered enough of the history. You don't have to get down into the weeds about which architect designed this window frame. That's a little too far in, but there's enough of it that we've got sort of like this sort of rich context of the founding of the town. And it was cool. It was cool. I mean, it was fun to spend some time in the newspaper archives. You get to see the original Crazy Woman's Well and this town that just sort of exploded, not off
right,
of oil or gold, but mineral water. You know,
yeah,
that's cool. What a great
yeah.
story.
And I talk to people all the time as far as and I'm now a professor over at community college for criminal justice, and I teach peace officer law and investigations. And I try to remind everybody, if all cops did the same thing, how much stuff would be been missing. So some cops love making traffic stops. That's what they just love it. They like, the unknown excitement out of it, or they like accumulating a lot of tickets. They like, I got the most tickets kind of thing.
Right.
There's all kinds of reasons. And I will have people, get mad and say, you guys are out there spending all your time doing, all your guys are out there spending all their time doing traffic stops, everything. Why aren't you stopping the murders that's happening? It's like, well, in Austin, we had 7 murders last year, but we had 78 traffic deaths.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's more important? Am I going to be able to control the murders that happen inside people's houses? Because most of the people that get killed are killed by someone that they know or love, and we can't patrol inside their house.
Right.
So, there's these different ideas. So when I look at cops, I was one of those cops that I'm driving along, I see something weird, I pull over the side of the road, check out of my vehicle, I'm out on foot, and I search under the bridge. How many cops do that? Not very
Right.
many. And so in a, I don't know, it's 32 years, but it was condensed much closer of me being on patrol. The amount I found 3 dead people doing that.
Wow.
Just walking along, there's a dead guy laying there, guy that has been missing for 2 years, and I found him because I got out of my car and I walked, under a bridge in a stream all the way to the lake, and that's where he was.
Yeah.
Found 7 meth labs. This is back in the 80s. You don't find meth labs anymore because everything's coming out of Mexico. But in the 80s, they were cooking meth out in the woods and trailer houses and things like that. And I would get out of my car and I would walk around whenever I found something unusual. So that's what I kind of look for in paranormal. I'm as a patrolman, I'm driving along and I look at a dirt road that's on the other side of a barbed wire fence. And on that dirt road, there are tree stumps laying in the middle of the dirt road. You're like, oh, well, that's just a person that owns that property and they fenced it off and they don't want you going back there. No, it's not. Those are banditos and they're building a meth lab back there because
Yeah.
that's what they do at
Yeah.
that time. That's
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
they would block off stuff and then take tree stumps and put it out there. It's like that is a sign and symptom of a meth lab.
Yeah.
So you go check it out. And with paranormal, you can either be thinking about Jeff Belanger and 2 seconds later he calls you on the phone and you go, nah, it's just coincidence. Hey, Jeff, what's going on? Or you go, I'm going to chalk that up with another red flag that something weird is going on.
Yeah.
And a psychologist or whatever could say, well, maybe you thought about Jeff 100 times that day. And it
That's
just so
probably
happens
true.
it's probably true. And it's, right.
Awkward.
And it's
Uh,
just, yeah, it's weird.
it's weird. I want to tell one of my favorite Greg stories. I've told it a million times, but here's a million and one.
You got a
Um,
Greg story?
I got plenty of Greg stories. So,
Really?
we were at another event. I think it was in Texas somewhere, but it doesn't matter. This is when I first got to see you do your thing. You weren't in a uniform anymore. Now you're like Greg, the author and paranormal researcher and, searcher of legends. You had a book out, The Zombie Advocacy.
I did.
And, uh,
Yeah.
and so you said, "Hey, would you be on my zombie panel?" And I'm like, "Oh, kid, all right, you got it. I'll do you a favor." So, so I was like, I mean, I've been on panels before. I generally hate them. I really do because anyway, it doesn't matter. Often it's just the same people repeating the same stuff, and I just don't find them interesting to be on the panel. And I think like the audience must hate being there. But I'll amuse this sweet guy, Greg. And I got up there and so Greg says, "All right, this is a zombie advocacy panel." He's like, "All right, Jeff, you're on your front porch. You got your 12 gauge shotgun resting on your lap, and there's a zombie dragging his foot down your street in front of you. What do you do?" And I was like, automatically, I'm like, "Aim for the head, shoot his brains out." And you said, "Why would you do that?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's a zombie. That's what you do. You aim for the head." He's like, "Was he on your property?" "No, he was on the street." "Well, then look, if he's coming for you, this is a stand your ground state. Of course you can shoot him, but he wasn't bothering you. Why would you do that? And if he's just walking down the street, why would you impede his rights?" And I just went, "Oh, Greg, we're not talking about zombies." I mean, I didn't say this out loud. In my head, I'm going, "We're not talking about zombies. We're talking about Terry Schiavo, who at the time was like she was in a vegetative state being kept alive by feeding tubes and everything else, and everybody was arguing, just let her die, or do we let her live, and what does it mean to be alive, what does it mean to be dead, right? And we were having these huge discussions over something that seemed totally silly, and that is the human rights of zombies. And yet I realized through this narrative, we were able to have a super important and big discussion without getting everybody up in arms. And that was, I mean, you had me after that. I'm like, I'm going to try my best. This is really great. Like, this is awesome. And I've thought for years, when we talk about hauntings, when we talk about monsters and ghosts and whatever, we're doing sort of the same thing. Call it just a story if you want. If you can't get yourself to believe in ghosts, it's okay. Like, the world goes on. However, there are events from history that haunt us. There are
Right.
unsolved murders and unsolved crimes that haunt communities and families who've lost people. And we connect to that because it's a human thing. And so by telling these stories, sometimes we're allowed to make, it's almost like the court jester can make fun of the king, but nobody else can. Well, maybe the paranormal investigators can talk about real history, right? Because and then without upsetting the politicians or whatever, because we're just saying like, well, this place is haunted, and here's what happened. Maybe you believe in ghosts, maybe you don't.
Right.
Whereas if you just talked about the history, suddenly like, oh, how dare you? That's a stain on us. We don't talk about it that way anymore.
Right.
So we might be the last people left who can save our country.
Yeah. The paranormal people. Isn't that funny?
Oh,
Yeah.
what have we come to?
Yeah.
But but that's the opportunity we have. Like, a legend exists. It's not up to you. It's not up to me. It exists because people are buzzing about something. And then you want to go and you want to find out for yourself. You stayed overnight in the haunted Hill House, and you found out for yourself. And you brought your poor dog, who didn't ask for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. He had PTSD after we left out of there. He did. He had nightmares and stuff.
Um, did the dog have any? You didn't really mention this. Did the dog have any strong reactions inside to anything that
Oh,
was?
yeah. He was looking at stuff. And you normally, no matter where we go, he'll sniff things. He'll look
Sure.
around. No, he would just stare at stuff and he would look over there and he'd stare at stuff. He wasn't sniffing on anything. He's just like standing there, just going, what is going on?
Do you think
Um,
it was the? So I've heard people who say like, when like people have dogs that they love dearly, and then they get like a new romantic partner, and the dog never liked the romantic partner. Like a dog person will tell you it actually had nothing to do with the partner. It had everything to do with you. The dog was picking up that you actually didn't fully trust this person, so the dog didn't. Do you think your dog was picking up on the environment or picking up on a little scared Greg?
he could have been picking up on both, I
Right.
suppose. I put him out in the car for a while, try to let him get some sleep during the night because he did not like it there at all.
Yeah.
He laid down a few times, but for the most part, he was just pacing around, pacing around, pacing around.
Wow.
But yeah, you look at any of this stuff, any of the legends at Haunted Hill House, any of the legends at Mineral Wells, all of these things. There was a there was a great people out there that are not Star Trek people. I get it. But I look deeper in the stories of Star Trek because they address, like you said, they address a lot of like contemporary things.
That was the
Uh,
point. Yeah.
yeah. And Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. Do you remember? I don't know if you've ever seen that episode, but they
I
run
did, but
across,
like, help.
yeah, they run across the Star Trek people run across this alien race that they communicate based on their history. They don't tell what we just did. If we did something, they refer to this famous person, whoever it might be. And Picard and this guy was surviving this attack from this other monster, and they paired up together to, even though they were enemies, they paired up together to defeat this thing, and that was Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra, which
Hmm.
had nothing to do with Picard and them. And he had to figure this out. It's like, oh, that's what you're talking about. So he was speaking in metaphor. He was speaking in like history that mirrored what is happening now. And I think that that is one of those things. I do a talk about uh, justice and how um, we look at, let's say, sheriff's posses back in the 1800s. If you're looking at any kind of um, unruly justice, somebody does something, we're all going to band together and go kill this person, and that was okay.
Hmm.
That was the way we did things. You're looking at the United States, 1850s. Um, Most of the states out there, if they were states or territories, they didn't have law enforcement out there. You had to take care of yourself. So it was a stand your ground everywhere, because otherwise, a guy like me or a guy like you are going to go take somebody else's stuff.
Yeah.
You better be able to defend yourself.
Hmm.
And you look at what happened back then, and then you look at the violent protests happening today. Those are those people. Those are your neighbors that are burning your business down.
Right.
They're not doing anything against the politicians that created this whole problem, but they'll attack their neighbors because their neighbors reflection or mirror whatever that they don't like. And so it's like, well, that's not accomplishing anything. We have a set of rules and a set of standards that if you follow it, you can change laws. You can put new laws in there. You can do that. And it's the same thing when you're investigating paranormal. We have a set of rules that you should try to follow uh, in order to maintain integrity in your investigation. And that's what I try to do.
Yeah. No, you do. And I mean, but that's also you've got like decades of training and experience at, investigating things that are literally life and death. And then, you get to bring that into the paranormal, which is awesome. And I know we've talked a lot over the years about how, some people just go in willy-nilly, or it's just the psychic said that there's a boy with a green shirt in the corner and, he killed his family. And you're like, really? You'd think that would have made the news, like you like, but just these stories that come up. I knew we were cut from a similar tree at another event where there was remember we were in the seance room, and the psychic medium, like a group, Greg and I had to stay put with the medium all night, and four different groups cycled through. And the first group came in and she was doing a reading, and she said, I see an airport, someone's associated with an airport or flying. And someone's just like, my dad was in the Air Force or something like that. And she's like, yes, this message is for you or whatever. And we're like, okay, we sat there, we observed, we listened. So they left. The next group came in. I feel like someone's associated with an airport. And Greg and I look at each other like, and by the time the third group came in, we were like, do you want us to do this one? I think we got it. Like the airport flight. I flew here on a plane. Yes, you're the one. You're the message, right? And I'm like, man, just think of the money we could have made if we went into psychic stuff instead of just writing.
So we had a leadership training day at the academy. I did quarterly training when I was the director over there, and so um, it, we would have our group of instructors come in and we would have a topic and we would talk about it. And one time, this particular one was doing interview and interrogation, right? So it was an interview and interrogation leadership workshop. And I spent the first 35, 40 minutes doing cold reading on everybody. And they thought I was a god. Everybody was amazed.
Oh,
And the thing about it is even with a cold reading, what's really happening. We can say that I'm running off of a template, and I need to do these 10 things in order for this cold reading to materialize as something mystical, I should say. And I don't do it. I don't make light of it, because I do believe that some people that do cold readings, that's just the way that they interpret, receive, work their information, and and that's how they do it. And then you have those others that just magically, you look at Chip Coffee.
Yeah,
I
sure.
work with a guy named John Coffee, and I keep calling him John Coffee. Chip Coffee. I've been in multiple gallery readings with him, and I'm just like, I can't figure out what he's doing here. This is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
This is amazing what he's doing. And you have the people that will step in and go, I don't believe in any of those psychics. I think they're just trying to take your money and blah blah blah. Well, uh, is a priest trying to take your money?
Yeah.
Yeah, the church is trying to get your money.
Sure.
So when you look at what, let's say, a Catholic priest does to help somebody whose family members have passed, and you watch what an honest psychic does, it's the same thing. Now, if they say, well, yeah, your loved one has passed, and this is really bad. Did it have like his he didn't feel good, right? There was something that he didn't feel well, yeah, he didn't feel good. He had cancer. It was like, yeah, and I feel like it was like in his yeah, it was in his
Body.
body. Yeah.
Right.
And we want to do
That's where
this.
people get cancer.
And it's like, well, and he's
Uh,
in limbo right now. So for $2,500, I can pray him out of limbo for you.
that's a deal.
You know,
Yeah.
when there is a cost to, the jailbreak, it's like, okay, that's not legit, man.
Yeah. I get it.
Um,
It's funny, like,
whatever else they're doing, I see the people that walk out of psychic stuff, and whether or not something mystical happened or not, when they feel good and they feel like they've gotten closure, and then it's like, who am I to judge if this
yeah.
works for them? How I'm
Yeah.
not gonna,
You're totally
but
right. And look at us, right? Sometimes we go into buildings and weird stuff happens and we go, ooh. And people don't believe us either,
right.
right? Yeah. They're like, oh, that didn't happen. I'm like, you weren't there. I was. I mean, I went in and had the experience. And I believe it. I know for me because I go into tons of places and most of the time nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
So when it does, you go, huh, well, that's weird. Not because I can handle this. I've been in old creepy buildings all hours of the day and night, and
Well, and that
but
was one of the things is actually a trip that you were supposed to be on. You ended up not going when we went to Romania. Corvin Castle or Hunadora Castle. That's one of the most amazing castles I've ever been to, as far as just creepy, weird place. Um, Nothing happened to me in there, and I went over into the ruins of part of the castles, all caved in, and we weren't supposed to go in there. And of course, I went crawling, spidlunking through these ruins, all way back in there, and it was an amazing experience. Amazing experience for me. Nothing happened there. Um, I've had places like that where I've had things happen, but nothing like the feeling that I got from Haunted Hill House.
hmm
I can say that out of all the places I've been, Haunted Hill House was the most uncomfortable, kind of oppressive feeling. And it wasn't because there's a gas leak, because I had CO2, detectors. I had a Geiger counter. I had everything that I could measure. Um, and the leaching of the ballast from the fluorescent light in the kitchen, and maybe one other spot, was about the only thing that was throwing EMF off. And I secured everything else, and you know, unless somebody was running a microwave at me to make me feel uncomfortable, I felt really super uncomfortable and weird.
Hmm.
And that was one of the things that, it's like, oh, yeah, I haven't been back up there in 5 years, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's not because I haven't necessarily wanted to. I'm just like, what am I going to do? When I was talking about the cops doing different things, some like patrolling their neighborhoods. Some like looking under bridges. Some like, whatever it is that they enjoy investigating. The way I do things is very much different than the way other ghost hunters do things or the way other paranormal investigators do things, relying on different types of equipment, relying on mediumship, or relying on these other avenues of exploration. So when you have people that step in and go, oh, they don't know what they're doing. That's stupid. They're doing this. That's a waste of time doing that. How do we know this? How have you proven that this is a waste of time? And we need a wide range of people using different investigative techniques, as long as they're standardized and you kind of repeat the same thing over and over again, because otherwise I'm going to be missing things. The way
Sure.
I investigate, I'm going to miss stuff because I don't use a spirit box.
Right.
Spirit box is great for immediate gratification. It's the TikTok.
Yeah,
It's
right.
so I can get something right now, because otherwise, what do? Sit 2 hours in a dark room with nothing happening.
Yep. That's it. That's how this often goes. But anyway, Greg, it's been awesome talking to you again, and thank you for what you did for Shadow Zine. I think this is a great issue. It's a fun issue. It's a town. By the way, we haven't mentioned it, but like a lot of people who are fans of the paranormal know Mineral Wells probably because of the Baker Hotel, which has been on every ghost show, like Ghost
Right.
Adventures, Ghost Hunters. Like it's been on all of them. And you of course touch on it and touch on some of those stories, but the focus is this Hill House where you get to go inside. And anyway, it's on sale now, and Greg will have it. And you're going to be at Hill House. When are you going to be there?
I'm going to be at Hill House in
You're
a
going
couple of
back.
weeks. Hold on a second. Hold on.
It's like middle of the month, right?
Yeah, the date. Oh, wow.
Here
Something
they
messed
come.
up here.
Look, there he is. Oh, where'd Greg go? Now it's Clark Kent. Oh, Superman.
May 17th.
May
Yeah,
17th. Okay. Well,
May 17th.
yeah, so very good. So I'm curious to hear what it's like when you go back. See
Yeah.
if anything else happens again. But
Well, there's going to be quite a few people there, and we're going to be setting up all kinds of different experiments in the different rooms. So
yeah.
it's like going to be like a dragnet.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool. Well, I'm excited to hear how it goes. Greg is already pitching other ideas for another zine, so I'm sure we'll be back again. And thanks for being, one of the first four to be part of Shadow Zine, man.
I'm referred to as a plank owner at this point. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. A
Yeah.
plank owner. I
Yeah, that's when when you build a ship and the first crew that gets on the ship are plank owners.
Oh, all right.
So,
Well, welcome welcome aboard, man.
thanks, buddy.
Anyway, take care. Good to see you. Be safe. Give my love to Lynn, and we'll talk soon. Oh yeah, let's
Back at you, brother.
go out.